Overthinking. What the hell actually is it? How do we stop it? And what's a way that we can actually reframe it into a more powerful approach to using the energy that is clearly really activated in trying to be creative, right? If you're anything like me, you're an ambitious creative that probably thinks a lot, has a lot of ideas, is maybe even very sensitive to the world around you, and so you think, though you may think to no end. You may never find closure, you may loop the same stories, you may be overloaded with information, you may keep seeking more and more information. So if that sounds something like you, this video is exactly for you. We're gonna dive into how to stop overthinking, but more so first, I just really wanna define what I believe overthinking to be. Secondly, I really wanna anchor the conversation in just a pragmatic, grounded way. And then third, I want to resource you with a practice that you can realistically implement right now to help you really improve your relationship to overthinking and to become more empowered in the way that you are prioritizing your energy, let's say. So first off, I define overthinking sort of in comparison. It's underfeeling. So what it speaks to is it's an inefficient prioritization of the energy moving through your body, through your system. Now that might seem a little high level or abstract for some, but let's break down what's happening in the brains of our body, because the mind isn't the only brain. Your gut, this core of your body, is actually the bigger part of your brain, right? And we've discovered in numerous like neurological studies that 80% of the signaling is sent from the bottom up. So it's not this top-down approach where where we believe things start cognitively. Cognition really kind of can begin in some sense from the bottom up, and I'm not a neuroscientist, so I can't speak to that maybe as proper or do it justice the way that it needs to be done, but what it speaks to is the majority of our processing begins in the body. But where we get stuck in overthinking is keeping the energy up here, because we live in a very intellectual culture. I live in the West, although I'm in an Italian kitchen right now. That's a different story. So if you're new, this is not my normal place, but I live in a very intellectual driven society. It's all about achievement, it's all about more, it's all about expressions of intellect, and that's all great. I really think intellect's a really important part of life, but not at the cost or the expense of other parts of the system. So when we think about overthinking, it means that we're just keeping all of our energy above the neck. We're keeping all of our energy in thought, which can be really useful at times, but as you know, if you struggle with overthinking, it's probably not helping you feel more calm, at peace, and really capable of living a life that you want to live. For me, my relationship with overthinking as a very creative person has come in the sense of thinking about 100 ideas and never being able to choose one, or it's been, just looping stories of concern and fear and never quite being able to break out of that. We all have a unique relationship to what that expression of overthinking is like, but essentially it's the inability or the lack of prioritizing what to do and how to move that creative energy, or just that energy in general, to other parts of our body, i.e. the parts of us that are actually going to do something about it. So how this relates to, I think, something really important that needs to be said when talking about overthinking is just getting very realistic about what it means to stop overthinking, right? So I think that, at least from the videos I've seen or the way that people frame it, is kind of just this very masculine, like, dude, just stop overthinking, bro, and like tomorrow you're gonna stop thinking. And sure, but I really don't think that's realistic, right? I don't think the goal should be to stop overthinking per se. It certainly shouldn't be to repress your mind. It certainly shouldn't be to cut off your creative energy. I think it should just be a call to be able to become aware of when you are overthinking and in that loop and loop and loop, and to be able to catch yourself. And to be able to use a practice like I'm going to describe to you to be able to stop that sort of pattern, to kind of pattern interrupt, come more into a different place of your body, a different energy center, a different place of creating and moving and navigating the world. That's not the mind. So that we can give space to all of this kind of chaos that might be happening up there. Because let's face it, the mind is going to be the mind. Yes, you can learn to meditate. Yes, you can learn to quiet your mind. Yes, you can learn to control your mind. But the mind is still going to be the mind. So let the mind be the mind, and when it's doing its thing, like looping a story, which obviously you're consciously feeding, there's a line where it's unconscious and there's a line where it's conscious. My goal is to help you realize once you start turning the hamster wheel of I'm going into that thought pattern, I'm looping that story, I'm looping that fear, how to stop, pattern interrupt, and come back. So I just want to frame this first by saying the goal is not to, by tomorrow, 100% of the time, I don't overthink anymore. I don't loop stories and patterns anymore. I would much rather everyone start off with a very realistic sort of goal. One time this week, when I start looping into a story, I'm going to consciously pause and do this practice so that I can give space and reprioritize my energy. 10% of the time, how about that? 10% of the time, and then maybe you can work your way up to 20%, 50% of the time. I would consider that mastery. If 50% of the time, when you're naturally wanting to go into a loop, that you instead can pause and reprioritize the flow of that energy elsewhere, that's a win. I'm not achieved until I finally just never overthink again. It's like, dude, that's unrealistic. And that's just gonna create more problems by you trying to be rigid about that. So it's a very, very simple practice that I can give you that will help you create a way of relating to the potential of that energy that just gets stuck up here and how to use it in a way that feels empowered, right? So let's just say next time you notice yourself, and you may not notice yourself until literally a couple more patterns of looping come, because it can be really under the hood. It can be really unconscious, right? But let's just say bring your awareness to when you might be looping a story. The second that you become aware that, okay, I've spent more than 5-10 minutes on this thought, on this idea, on this fear. An example I'll use is, I guess the first thing that comes up is I experienced heartbreak a while back, in a huge story that I was looping in my mind for literally months, and still to some degree deal with, of course, because I'm human, is she safe? Is she okay? Will I see her again? Am I going to be able to have the chance to really deeply connect with her? Is she with another person? Whatever it is. And that's okay. Those thoughts are totally okay for a moment, for a few minutes. But if they're constantly looping, if 10 minutes, 15 minutes go by and you're still chewing on those, this is a great time to, step one, just take a deep breath. Like just a deep inhale, exhale. And for me, as a man, it might be different as a woman. It really helps if I breathe deep into my belly, like really, really, really deep into my belly. That inhale and exhale, do that a couple times, just immediately creates a sense of space, right? It immediately creates a pause. So now I've created space between me and the pattern of overthinking, and now I have a choice. And I like to introduce questions to choice. So I'm sitting with myself, and you can just delight in this pause for as long as you want. You can literally just say, okay, I might still think about this, but I'm going to instead bring my focus from my mind to breathing to this part of my body. That's why I choose the belly. It helps. I'm just going to focus on receiving breath in my belly. And then when I'm ready, I can ask, like, where can I best prioritize this energy flowing through me? Like, what does this energy want to become? Chances are the energy actually doesn't want to become, nor do you want it to become, like just a thought pattern. What if instead this became a way for you to create an artifact? You know, I've seen people use practices where this is totally separate, but every time that they've kind of come up against this sort of this desire to distract or to numb, they immediately pull up you know, pen and paper, or they start telling all their friends that they love them. And it's like, that's freaking beautiful. You don't have to do that in this case, but focus on creating an outlet for that energy. If you're stuck overthinking on the next idea, what you want to do next in your business, you know, a person, whatever, create that pause and ask yourself, you know what? What's the best use of my energy right now? Maybe it's actually going for a run. Maybe it's sitting down for 10 minutes and making a watercolor sketch of one of the beautiful Italian buildings outside. Or maybe it's sitting down and, you know what, I'm gonna just create a video, whatever it is. Something that is a hard shift from the strong thinking into more of something expressed through the body, right? And that begins to train this part of your system, this sort of, you know, I call it like the head to heart to hand system, because all of that stuff is really, in some way, it's coming from the heart. It just might kind of get skewed, right? The concerns, the fears, and this and that, the desire, it's on your heart, but it just kind of gets muddy in the brain. So when we can change that system and then introduce our hand, or whatever it is, into creating something, making a sketch, calling a friend, taking a run, I like the idea of making an artifact, you know? Immediately we've created space between our overthinking, and we've gotten into the action, the habit of creating expression, right? And it's not necessarily like we're just dispelling energy out into the world, but we're able to use that energy in a way that could be more aligned with what our priorities are. If my priority is to create something every day, or is to help people on a daily basis, or is to just feel like I got to fully express myself, I'm much better off using that energy, doing something in my body, than keeping it up in my mind. But again, I really want to anchor it again. It's unrealistic for you to do this every single time. If you can, great, amazing. But there's going to be times where it's going to be 3 a.m. and you're like, I don't want to run. I don't want to start typing something. I certainly don't want to get my paints out, whatever it is. And I'm using really creative examples. It can be much more nuanced to you. It can literally just be, I'm going to pull up a pillow and I'm going to sit down on the floor, light a candle, and just look at a flame. You know? Again, it's endless. So whatever feels right for you, but whatever is a translation to kind of bring that energy more down through your body, that's a win in my book. Anytime you can consciously drop from your mind more into like feeling more, what am I not fully feeling, or what wants to be just moved through me, that's a freaking win as far as overthinking goes. And imagine you do that once this week, the next week you do it twice. In a couple months' time, like that's becoming like a regular pattern. Imagine where you are in 6 months or a year, you know? And it's cyclical. I understand patterns come in cyclical waves. But to me, that's much more of a grounded practice, because let's face it, anything worthwhile is an integrated practice that takes time. Anyone that sells you something that is like, hey, tomorrow you can be done with it, sure, maybe for the people that are ultra disciplined and very, I would say, like maybe masculine in that regard, but everyone's a unique blend of what works well for them. So seeing it through a longer period of time and having a simple practice is much better than this kind of big, grandiose, cold turkey thing, you know. Again, whatever works for you. But my hope is that with this sort of reframe about what overthinking really is, it's just not prioritizing the energy in a way that is most nourishing to you, and really getting like just pragmatic about the fact that like, look, you don't need to drop it overnight. Integrate that practice at whatever interval feels good for you, whenever you become aware of it, and that's a win, you know? The second you become aware of it and then you do a pattern interrupt to change that habit, you're heading in a beautiful direction. It's going to be difficult, but that is a great place to start. So I hope that you found this useful. If you did, please let me know. I love to hear from y'all. There's plenty of new people and faces that have been joining, so thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of your virtual day, time, night, morning, whatever it is. I'm in Italy right now, traveling. I hope to maybe make another video. If not, it'll be another week. So Yeah, appreciate y'all. Ciao.